Hello everyone, welcome to Counselling Skills for the Professions. I love teaching this course and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And I know that you've all chosen this as an elective, so you have some kind of natural interest in counselling. So I'm really looking forward to getting started with you. So my name is Marika Lettingham and I'm the lecturer for the program, for the course. I am also the program coordinator for the Master of Counselling, so that's my other job. I'm also a psychologist and I've been in the field of mental health for about 20 years and I'm still in private practice. So I do have a passion for counselling. And I'm looking forward to sharing some things that I've learnt, some mistakes that I might have made, and helping you understand how you can help people, whether you're students or parents or people in general. Heath Marshall is also going to be your tutor for the course for some of you. Heath is a relationships counsellor for Relationships Australia. He has lots of really good experience that he can share with you as well. So I'm sure that the lucky people that have Heath as a tutor will enjoy his lessons. So for your tutorials, you can see that there are 3 tutorials. They're all going to be on campus. But make sure you do let your tutor know if you can't make it. Because these tutorials are experiential, so it's about practicing your skills and learning skills. They're not something that you can catch up on by reading notes later on. And it's really about building up your skills in preparation for your assessment. Make sure you try and make your tutorials. Obviously, in the current climate, it's important that you don't come to tutorials when you're sick. So if you have a cold or if you're feeling under the weather, don't come, just let us know, okay? All right, so textbooks. Hooray for ebooks. No more spending hundreds of dollars on textbooks. So these are the 2 books that we're using this semester. Personal counselling skills. Geldard and Geldard have written a lot of introductory counselling books, and this is a very good one. It's a very good introduction. There is a more recent version, but it's not available as an ebook. And Counselling Skills for Teachers is another good one. We're fortunate this semester that we've only got Master of Education students enrolled in this course, so we're going to be able to tailor things a little bit more to your needs, which is great. So assessments. So the first assessment that we do in this course is a journal synopsis. So after each tutorial, you will write a journal entry, and the synopsis is a summary of all of those journal entries. So you submit that in week 9 on the 25th of September on Turnitin. So that's on Blackboard. If you go to the assessments tab, you'll find the link where you can upload that journal synopsis. The second assessment is your evaluation of skills, and that's going to be in class. And then the third assessment is an exam. So just to go into a bit more detail about the skills development journal. So keep a weekly journal after each tutorial, and the journal is really a record of what you learned, how it felt, what was difficult, what did it mean for you, how does it relate to being a teacher, how can you improve next time, what is it about yourself personally that makes that particular lesson meaningful? So your notes can be, you know, anything like bullet points or mind maps or keywords. I won't be looking at the actual journal, so you can keep it however you like. But what you will be handing in is a synopsis. So that's a summary of the journal up to week 8, and that's because after week 8 we start to do the assessments. So there's a different focus in the tutorials. So you don't need to reference your skills journal. However, you might want to refer to something you've read, or you know, something from the textbook or a journal article that is on Blackboard that relates particularly, and that's great, but it's not, you won't be marked down if you don't reference. And another thing that people often ask me is, you know, does it have to be the same number of words for each session? Well, no, because some sessions will stand out to you as being more meaningful or more difficult, for example, than others. So there'll be some that you want to write more about and some that you want to write less about. So in terms of the word count, there doesn't need to be a particular number of words for each session. So importantly, it needs to be deeper than just talking about what you did. So we were all there, we know what you did, but what we really want to know is, what does the learning mean for you? How does it relate to being a teacher? How can you improve next time? What are you finding difficult, and why do you think that might be? So that's what we call developing reflexivity. So learning how to reflect on our experiences and relate them to ourselves personally. So the next assessment, which students often find the thought of very scary, but it's not actually as scary as it sounds, is the skills assessment. So we ask everybody to record a counselling session with another student from your tutorial group. And it's important that it's from your particular group, because we're going to be showing the segment in class. So just in terms of confidentiality and privacy, we ask that you use someone who's going to be in the class as well. So choose a 10 to 15 minute segment to be shown in class from this counselling session that you record, and bring it on a USB to class on the day that you're told. So we'll put up a schedule of when you're going to be assessed. So you can record your session either on an iPad, propped up if you're going to do it in person, or some students decide to record a session on Zoom, and that works really well too if you'd rather do it remotely, if this works better for you. So either way is fine. So from week 9, we'll start to view these segments in class, and you'll get assessed based on the segment and whether you've displayed the skills we're looking for, which are attending behaviours, paraphrasing, empathy, summaries and questions. And you'll find that rubric in the course outline. You'll also get feedback from your peers as well, and that's something that you will develop over this course, is that ability to give constructive feedback to each other on your skills. And then finally, the exam, everyone's favourite. 2 hours, 10 minutes, and it is in essay form, but short essays, so short answers on content that's covered in the lectures, and in the textbooks and in the readings, and it's pretty straightforward. There are no trick questions or anything like that, and we'll go through the exam preparation closer to the time. So skills practice. So this forms the main content of our tutorials. So usually the way we learn counselling skills is to work in triads with one counsellor, one client and one observer. And we use real content. And the reason for that is that when we're making up a story or doing a role play, it's really difficult for the person who's counselling you to actually empathise with that story. So we use material that's real when you're acting as a client for someone who's practicing their counselling skills with you. But it's really important that when you're acting as a client, that you don't use anything that's too distressing, because obviously we're all beginners. We want to make sure that you're appropriately attended to and so on. So use something that's not too distressing, like, you know, an issue with your housemate or a problem at work, or, you know, some stress about university or about the, you know, future employment or so on. So generally, if you try and gauge between 1 and 10, 10 being really distressing content and 1 being no feeling attached to it whatsoever, we try and aim for about a 4, around about that. And it's certainly not a black and white, and, you know, for everyone it's different, but, you know, be aware of looking after yourself and making sure you're not bringing content that's too upsetting or distressing. So we'll give each other feedback in our tutorials. So your observer in your triad will give you feedback as to what they found that you did well, what you could work on, and, you know, and it's a really useful process, because the observer usually notices things that you maybe missed out on because you were concentrating so hard on practicing your counselling skills. And expect that you're going to feel very bad at times. You know, expect that you'll feel like that you're terrible at this, and that's because you're learning a new skill, and it's all part of learning counselling skills. And certainly, learning counselling skills can be tricky, because it asks you to rethink the way you communicate with people. And we all have a natural way of communicating with people, and this is about being more deliberate about the way we communicate and respond to people. So that's tricky, and we realize that, so go easy on yourself. You'll get there in the end. Okay, so how to be successful in this course? Well, turn up for a start for the tutorials, unless you're sick. So you need to attend at Notre Dame. Obviously, we have an attendance policy. Maintain your journal throughout the semester, particularly those first week 1 to week 8. It's really important that you keep that journal. We've had some students who thought, oh, I'll just do it at the end, and then it's just very difficult for them to remember their learning process. So don't do that. Try and keep that journal every week. Prepare early for your videotaped session. So think about who you might want to work with. You know, maybe by week 4, think about, you know, who could I record a session with? Get to know what equipment you want to use, whether you're going to use an iPad or a laptop, or you're going to do it by Zoom. And, you know, where you might do it. Ask the person that you want to work with and get their agreement. And of course, participating in the classes, completing and submission of all assessment tasks is needed to pass the course. I have no doubt that you'll all do that. Okay. So why are you here? You've chosen this as an elective, which is fantastic, which shows me that you care about making a difference to people. And you're interested in human nature and how to help people in distress. So in particular, teachers and counselling skills. Learning counselling skills can help you better understand and empathise with a broader range of people and a broader range of behaviours. So it can help you stop yourself from reacting to a particularly challenging behaviour from, for example, a parent or a student or a friend or anyone in your life really, and try and empathize and understand where that behavior is coming from. It helps you learn how you build trust, which can help you optimize your teaching and your outcomes with the students. Teachers who can more effectively connect with their students are more able to motivate and encourage kids. So it's focusing on how do we connect, how do we build that relationship with the students in order to motivate them and want them to do their best. You'll be better equipped to respond to personal issues that students are having. And we know that that's only increasing in the teaching world. So how to pick when a student needs a referral to a professional, how to respond to them when they're in distress, and to show empathy and to listen to find out what the problem is. And it's important to know that you're not expected to fix a student's problems. So this course isn't about how you can treat a student who is in distress or suffering from anxiety or depression or anything like that. It's learning how to engage with the student. So first of all, they feel comfortable enough to talk to you about the problem, learning to recognize when the problem needs to be referred to someone who's a professional who can deal with that problem with the student, and to continue to provide support to the student and their parents as well. So learning that you're not expected to fix a problem, rather just to support and recognize the problem, can help relieve that sense of, what if a student comes to me with something that I don't know how to deal with. Counselling skills are really handy when dealing with parents. That's not to say that all parents are difficult, but most parents are worried about their children. They're worried about being judged. They have a lot of, there's a lot of reasons why parents may come across, in certain ways. And so learning some counselling skills can be a really great way of having constructive conversations with parents, to reduce the amount of defensiveness that you might be met with, to help support that parent in whatever that family is going through. So there's lots of reasons why counselling skills can help you when you're dealing with parents. So, counselling. So these are the three kind of areas we're going to cover now. What is counselling? How is it different from a deep and meaningful conversation with a friend? And what is it not? So what is counselling? Well, there's lots of different definitions, but this is one that PACFA, the Psychotherapy and Counselling Federation of Australia, use. And that's professional counselling is a safe and confidential collaboration between a counsellor and client to promote mental health and well-being, enhance self-understanding, and resolve identified concerns. So it's a collaboration, it's confidential, it's safe, and clients are active participants in the counselling process at every stage. So it's not something that we are doing to someone, it's something we're doing with someone as a collaboration. Okay, so just move that up a bit. So the difference between counselling and friendship. So sometimes it might seem like counselling is very similar to having a chat with your friend over coffee. But there are some very significant differences, and that is that friendship is a two-way relationship. So you might say something, the friend listens to you, and then the friend might share something about themselves. Whereas that's the difference between counselling and being a friend, is that in counselling, the counsellor is there for the client. The client is not there for the counsellor. So we need to be really clear about that and understand that there are boundaries between attending to someone's distress and listening to them and showing empathy, and making it into a personal relationship whereby you'd be sharing about yourself and making it about your needs as well. So counselling is about the client's needs, not the counsellor's needs. So in this course, you'll notice that I refer to the person that you're counselling as the client, and that is just a way of referring to the counsellee, and it's borrowed from the context of professional counselling. But equally, it could be that, it could be in relation to a student or a parent or anyone else that you're engaging with using your counselling skills. So, what counselling is not? Well, counselling is not advice giving, and it is certainly very tempting to, when someone's sharing an issue with you, and maybe you went through the same issue last year, just to tell them, well, this is what I think you should do. I think you should do A, B, and C. And the reason why that's very tempting is because it's in some ways easier, and we don't have to sit with the feeling of not actually knowing what the solution is, if we can just give them advice. However, we know that giving advice isn't necessarily very helpful, and that's because you may have been through a very similar situation to someone, but the way you saw that problem could be completely different to the way the person sitting in front of you is seeing the problem. So it might be a problem for them for a completely different reason to the reason it was a problem for you. And that's why giving the advice that worked for you isn't necessarily going to help them. So it's really important that we understand that the point of counselling is to help the client come to their own solution. So it's not about pushing it back to them and saying, oh, it's up to you, I can't give you any advice. It's about facilitating that process of understanding, what do I need in this situation? It's not coaching. So when we think about coaching, that tends to be a bit more coercive. So trying to get someone to do something that we think will be good for them. And that doesn't really fit in with the counselling philosophy either. So that's more about, for example, fitness coaching, we think, well, getting them to do 20 push-ups every day will be good for them. So that doesn't work in counselling. We need to work with the client on a strategy or an approach that works for them, particularly as an individual. So we can't be pushing them into doing things that we think will help. And it's not a chat. So we're not talking about the weather, we're not talking about ourselves or what we did on the weekend. Counselling is a purposeful, strategic approach. So we're thinking about the skills that we're using that can help the client open up, that can help the client explore the problem and explore the solutions. So it's not just a random chat that's not going anywhere. So when we look at the data about different approaches of counsellors or psychologists, there's lots of different approaches. So you've got psychodynamic, you've got person-centered, you've got cognitive behaviour therapy, solution-focused, narrative therapy, family therapy. And there's very little impact on what kind of therapy you give or you use with a client in relation to outcome. What really makes a difference is the relationship. So in terms of what we can control, the common factors are the therapeutic relationship and the therapist's qualities. So that counts for 30% of outcome. And when I say outcome, I mean whether a client improves or not. And so, our ability to form a relationship with someone, to build trust, to show that we care, to show empathy, all those kinds of qualities have a big impact on the outcome for the client. You can see in the blue area there, extra therapeutic change. So often, or 40% of the time, other things that have nothing to do with us have a big impact on the outcome for the person as well. And that could be how ready they are to make a change in their life, how severe the problem is and how long it's been going on for, the resources they have. So for example, if someone is homeless, it's very difficult for them to look at psychological or emotional issues before that basic need of shelter is taken care of. And other things, fortuitous events like someone, finds work and therefore they find that their mental health improves, or their family life improves, or they change schools and they find that they get a lot more support and that improves their mental health. So those are things we don't necessarily have control over, but they also have a big impact on people's outcomes. So what we do have control over is the relationship that we build with people. So 15% is is how much techniques and approaches have an impact. And then there's the placebo effect of someone who attends counselling and feels like they're getting better as a result of that. And often you'll find that, for example, as a psychologist, when someone rings up and books in with me and maybe they can't get in for 3 weeks, and they'll often find that between that first phone call and the appointment in 3 weeks' time, that they start to feel better. And that's because there's a sense that they're doing something about how they're feeling. And that's in relation to the placebo effect. So there's certain qualities that counsellors, or attitudes that counsellors have been shown to be really helpful in developing a trusting relationship with the client. The first one is being empathic. So that's really feeling for the client and really showing that we care for the client. Being genuine. So you might have, seen or had the experience of someone saying, oh, are you okay? You can always talk to me if you want. And it doesn't seem quite genuine. Yeah, it doesn't seem quite like the person means it. So being genuine means being yourself, not changing the way you talk or changing the way you, your presence in general. So being your authentic self and genuinely showing that you care, not pretending. Being accepting of the person. So that's trying to avoid judging a person, trying to avoid preconceived ideas of what people should or shouldn't be doing, and being open-minded. That's related to being non-judgmental as well. And these last two, cognitively complex. So that's in reference to the ability to look underneath the surface. So someone might present to you with an annoying behavior and you might think, that's really annoying, I don't want to be around that person. Or you could think, I wonder what's going on for that person. So looking beneath the surface is what the cognitively complex do. And that helps you relate to a wider range of people. Psychologically adjusted. Now, there's there's no need for you to be completely free of psychological problems in order to help other people. But the most important thing is that you're aware of your own vulnerabilities and your own drives and your own needs, so it doesn't impact on the person that you're trying to help. Yeah. So if you are unaware of a need for constant admiration, for example, you might find that that has an impact in the way you deal with the person you're trying to help. Yeah. So we need to become aware of our own needs and our own backgrounds and our own vulnerabilities, so it doesn't impact the person we're trying to help. And finally, able to build a relationship with your client, and that requires all of the above qualities. So this video clip is for you to watch later, and it just shows it's a very basic person-centered session, and it just shows the range of skills that can be used in a counselling session. So I encourage you to have a look and think about, you know, what you notice the counsellor doing to help the client open up. What did you like about the video? What do you how do you feel it was for the client? What would you do differently? Would you like to go see a counsellor like that, or were there things that you felt could be improved upon? So have a look at that video. Okay, so when we're talking about counselling, we need to think about why someone might actually seek counselling. Because seeking counselling involves a level of opening up and self-disclosure, which can be really, really scary. And it can involve talking about something that you've never spoken about before. And so often it's when someone has been bearing a problem on their own for so long that they actually need to share that burden with someone else. And so they have some kind of hope that that will help. So these are some of the feelings that people can drive people to seek counselling or to seek help. So confusion, fearful, responsible, panic, can't concentrate, despair, alone, embarrassed. There's a huge range. And two people with what seems to be identical problems will usually have different emotions about those same problems. And so that's why it's really important to build that relationship with the client and really try and understand their experience of the problem. So most people seek counselling when they're having a crisis. So that's when the distress from a problem has become really difficult, so they're seeking some relief from that. The central feature of that counselling is the relationship between the client and the counsellor. It's not about doing something to someone or applying techniques to someone. It's about building that relationship. The expectations of the person seeking help may differ from that of the counsellors. So it's really important to try and uncover with the client what is it they're seeking, what kind of help are they looking for, so we can be sure that we can either meet those expectations or we can help them understand the limits of counselling. Counsellors try and empower people seeking help so they can become self-sufficient. So what we really want to avoid is creating dependency with people. So they need to go to you before they make any decision, or anytime there's any crisis in their life, they need to go to you to feel better. We're actually trying to help people learn about themselves and their coping strategies and what works for them so they can use that independently in the future. And the goals of the counselling process include working with the person to help them discover solutions and make changes that fit for them. So not providing them with solutions, but helping them uncover solutions that will work for them. So while skills and techniques are important, it's the quality of the relationship that's really the major determinant in a successful outcome. So congruence means being genuine and real. Empathic means joining with the person, so there's a feeling of togetherness. It means being warm and sensitive. Unconditional positive regard involves accepting the person non-judgmentally as someone of value, regardless of strengths and weaknesses. So that in particular relates to seeing someone as having value regardless of how they might be behaving at the time or whatever they might have done in the past. And that can be tricky, and that's why being empathic and trying to understand where someone's coming from will help you with that. And that will certainly help you deal with some really challenging behaviours as teachers. And we need to respect the individual's autonomy and competence. So that means that we don't want them to become dependent on us. We need to have some respect for the fact that they have all the resources they need within them, and it's our job to help them discover those resources. So we're not the experts, we're just joining them to help them figure out their strengths. Sometimes it's hard not to be judgmental. So one of the ways around that is to have a very clear understanding of our own values and beliefs. And that's, and the reason for that is because once we're aware of what we believe and what we value, we can be more careful about not imposing that point of view onto other people. So it may be that you really value financial independence, for example, but perhaps somebody else doesn't. And so having a very clear understanding that this is something that you really value and where did that value come from? So perhaps it came from your family, the way you were brought up, can help you understand that other people have different experiences and they might value different things. So maybe they value education, or maybe they value experiences in life, or following your dreams, or whatever values were passed on by their family. So that self-knowledge helps us to develop empathy and to help see the world through other people's eyes. First of all, we need to understand ourselves and what we believe and where we come from, and then that can help us see other people, where they've come from, and see the world through their eyes. And that is the antidote to being judgmental. So there are many ways to gain an understanding about who you are. Training, education, self-reflection can really help. And in the tutorial, we're going to do an exercise on your values as a beginning point. And this process enables you to develop a quiet confidence and clarity about who you are. So there's no need to change who you are, but it gives you a clarity of that, and a confidence in that, and an understanding that who you are and what you value will be different to the next person. And that's the lecture for this week. I hope you enjoy your tutorials and you're ready to get stuck into learning some counselling skills. And I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday, and have a good week.